What up, guys? Hope everything's going well. I wanted to do this video response to the Top Shot comments that I got the other day, and I'd also like to incorporate sports cards and the bubble that is forming in these markets right now. So I've seen some comments. People are saying like, "Hey man, I invested $50 last month, and it turns into what, 2, 3, 4 grand within a month." And if you look at from a stock market perspective, those gains are unsustainable. Like I mentioned before, the stock market has an annual return about 10 years, the S&P 500, 10 to 11%. And if you see, a $50 investment go up, 20-fold within 1 month, so 20 times 10, what you're saying, like a 2,000% annual return. If you extrapolate that data over 2,000, that return is great. If you have made that money and if you're in cash. But to continue to make that money year after year after year, that's not going to happen. And eventually there will be other products or other services in the collectibles arena that will come about. Football hasn't had, a NFL Top Shot moment or NFL Pass or whatever they're going to come up with. The other sports have not as well. If you look at hockey, if you look at baseball, and it could be like sports card trading. It could be a cyclical thing where, okay, NBA Top Shot, they're throwing their money into MLB, they're going to throw their money into the NFL and whatnot. So that's one thing to know. This market will be saturated over time. And in addition to that, the Federal Reserve is creating all of this mania right now. Because, there was a gradual return on cards year after year. You saw a gradually 10-15% increase. But the thing was that last year they're printing all this monopoly money. This monopoly money went into the collectibles arena. I'll give you an example. This Usain Bolt card last year, I bought in summer. It's rare in the terms of that it's not been graded as much. There are cards out there, but people didn't grade these. Bought it for $60. I was telling you about BGS 9. And right now, a PSA 9, a different grading company, last auction on PWCC was $3,200. So I would value this card maybe at $1,500 if I were to, send it to PWCC and they were to put it up there. But so just do the math, $60 to $1,500. That's a huge return. I have other cards as well that have been insane. Mayweather BGS card, 9.5. For $1,000. I bought it last year in May, and one of the sales a few weeks ago was 15 grand. That's a tenfold increase. It's not even a year. I understand those returns are not sustainable. However, I'm doing that most likely for a long-term play, unless I need to liquidate and I need the money in the next few years. But I'm preparing myself for this bubble to burst. And why this bubble will burst, I've explained before, is the Fed is going to raise interest rates. Once the short-term interest rates go above, the 10-year yield, that's when you get an inverted yield curve and the markets crash. All over the news a few years ago, they're talking about the inverted yield curve. No one's talking about that now. Everyone's talking about COVID and the vaccine and whatnot, on all these financial channels. And eventually, they're going to be talking about the yield curve again, but that's a few years out. Right now, they're trying to get back to returning to normal life. And those people, heavily invested in Top Shot, you have to remember there will be competitors in different sports. So that's one thing to know. Now, in terms of, these NFTs, non-fungible tokens, that could potentially be a long-term play. But, we're talking about this is in its infancy. And a few years from now, when this bubble bursts, that's when we'll probably get really good opportunities. We're going to see what is really in high demand, because right now, you have all this hot money going into it. So it's a hype. But we should figure out in the next few years that there will be certain items that will be in high demand, and they're obviously scarce. So that's something that I'm going to look out for. And you could draw to the parallels of this stock market of the tech bubble. In the 90s, every stock was going up that had a .com. Pets.com, that stock just went up like crazy. And if you look at other instances, there were stocks that went from a few dollars to $1,500. So that's one thing that I'm seeing is, okay, stocks like that crashed. And we're seeing similar irrational exuberance in these type of markets like we saw in the 1990s. So what I'm going to be doing is, okay, I want to see what could possibly be the next Amazon.com of NFTs and what's high in demand. Because if you look at it from the 1990s, Amazon.com went to $200, then it crashed down to 200, and then stock went from $20 to $200 again in 2008, and then went back down to $20, and then from $20 right now it's what, $3,000. So that's what I want to look for. I want to look for these stocks, not these stocks, but these NFTs in the next few years that will most likely be high in demand. And right now we can't tell what will be in super high demand a few years from now. Right now there's just all this hot money speculation. Athletes are throwing in the money. In my opinion, this looks like a classic, trying to draw in people at the top and try to, hose them down, like what Wall Street does. It's like a pump and dump. That's the behavior that I saw. I saw ESPN talk about it. I saw Pat McAfee talk about it. The mainstream media is getting all into it while, everyone's jumping in. I don't like jumping in when everyone is there. I want to get in before. And, if some of you were investing in this, like in the fall of last year or December, congratulations. You were buying when no one was there. And right now, it just seems too overheated for my risk tolerance to get in. And, I do expect other NFTs to do well in the coming years because the Fed's going to print all this monopoly money. So, I'm not going to be investing in it because I want to observe right now what's going on. And I said I'm not going to touch NBA Top Shot because there's going to be other competitors. Now, with Top Shot and other sports, if there are moments such as, Kobe Bryant, one of his last moments, playing in the NBA, or Michael Jordan's iconic shot over Brian Russell against the Utah Jazz in 1998, and if you're talking about MJ shooting over Craig Elo, if you have moments like that, those would probably make more sense long term. I know a lot of people here are flippers, and some people that are flipping cards may be frustrated because PSA has long wait time. So that's why you may see some people going from cards into these NFTs because there's a huge backlog at these grading companies. But that being said, if the NFL also comes up with some of these moments, what I would think would be popular, and as long as they're scarce, and the price would probably go up with these, is Patrick Mahomes, his second year, doing these no-look passes. I think people would gravitate towards that. And if you look at the MLB, there's moments where Hank Aaron hit that leading home run I mean, where he overtook Roger Maris and he was the home run king, where you had those two guys follow him around the base paths. Stuff like that, in my opinion, would be going up in value over time. And, there's also a Sammy Sosa moment, in 2001 after 9/11. He had that American flag, or he had the American flag, he was carrying it all over Wrigley Field. And, that was an iconic moment at that time in the history of the United States, even though Sammy Sosa is not a well-liked personality anymore. So that's what I'm looking at and talking about. If you get into scarce items, right? I was getting into this when no one really was. Maybe like 12 watchers on eBay, $60. And there's some other cards right now that no one else is looking at, and that's what I want to focus on. And specifically, the Olympics. I interviewed my buddy John the other day, and he was talking about Katie Ledecky. She is the GOAT of female sports, and she still has maybe 2, maybe 3 Olympics left to go, and still no one's buying them. I bought a huge bunch of her cards, SI for Kids, and those SI for Kid cards are in fire right now. And eventually more will be graded and the price will go down. I understand that, but it's still hard getting a PSA 9 or PSA 10 because just cutting it is hard. And in addition to that, the centering of those cards are not great. So that's why like a PSA 9 and PSA 10, like of LeBron, those cards, are actually doing well, despite LeBron James not playing well right now because AD is not in the games. So, yeah, that's the name of the game. If you want to look for investing opportunities and you don't want to flip. I know there's a lot of flippers here. I usually flip in the stock market using the option, so I'm a more conservative investor in the collectibles arena. I don't really like flipping that much. I do flip here and there, through my wife's e-commerce business, but, I'm trying to do this as a long-term hold. And even I'm anticipating holding some of these while this market crashes in the next few years. And the thing to look for is, okay, buy cards that you believe that are scarce, number one, and 2, where the demand isn't there now, but you believe the demand will be there in the future, higher demand. And that's how you can, be better than the next guy in terms of investing in cards. So a lot of people, what they do is, they buy high and they try to sell higher. Well, that usually doesn't work over a long period of time. In the stock market, people make money by buying low and selling high. And that's what you got to do here if you're going to be a long-term investor in this game. And, in addition, some people are talking about Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I have issues with because, some governments around the world are cracking down on it. So that's one other issue that I see with NFTs in the next few years, even though they probably will do well, anything associated with NFTs. But, you got to see Bitcoin, and when Bitcoin crashes, or, they come up with an alternative currency, via the Federal Reserve, what if they come up with FedCoin, That's, one threat to this industry, even though blockchain is not going anywhere anytime soon. So name of the game is scarcity, and whatever you invest in, try to find out what you believe will be in higher demand in the future. And avoid buying high and selling higher. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think. Talk to you later.